has been a really long day. Thankfully I had a day off of work. I was able to get a bunch of farm stuff done, but I'm exhausted. But Madeline sent me this email and she said that yeah, you'll want to check this one out. So she sends me articles several times a day. She's kind of a news junkie. So anyways, so she sends me this article that says you've only got 25 days left. 25 days of diesel supply left. And this is a little bit nerve-wracking, so let's break this down here for a second. The United States is down to 25 days of diesel supply as a top White House official declared the stockpile levels to be unacceptably low. So this is talking about, it looks like the stockpile levels rather than how much we actually have. This is as of October 14th, 25.4 days of supply, down from the supply 4 weeks prior of 34.2. So in that time frame, we've lowered our supply. So in 3 weeks, we lowered our supply by 10 days. So we're having to obviously use some of our reserves. Looks like a half a day worth of reserve every day. So what does that mean? It means if we don't get this situation fixed and we go with this current rate that we're going at right now, we've got about 50 days left of stockpile reserves before we start hitting shortages to where there's only basically half of the amount of diesel fuel that we need. Now, for those of you that don't drive diesel, I'll break it down for you. For one, there's a good percentage, and I don't know exactly what it is. I want to say one time I read that it was about 15% of private vehicles, but don't quote me on that number, but of like residential vehicles are diesel. So people that have, like me, that have diesel trucks, I'm sure that number's gone up actually over the last couple of years as we've gotten more diesel fuel efficient vehicles, things like the EcoBoost diesels and stuff like that that we're seeing now. But this is a little bit more nerve-wracking because when we consider what diesel affects everything from farming and agriculture to industrial businesses to mining operations, because all of those machines have to be, you know, reliant on the diesel, and so this would cause a price increase and a shortage everywhere. The businesses are not going to be the ones that pay it, and what I mean by that is they'll pay the price, whatever the market price of the diesel is, but they're not going to be the ones suffering the shortages. Now, let me clarify on that. When businesses buy, they buy in bulk from a petroleum distributor. So it's the same way that we do with our farm and that a lot of farms do. They buy it in bulk at petroleum distributors, which is basically the same price that you pay at the pump because that's the money that the distributor makes on it. But the difference is that you actually get kind of first come, first serve, because they go wait in line, they fill up their trucks, and then they bring it to you. Rather than they go wait in line, then they bring it to the pump, and then everybody cleans the pumps out. And so they have a little bit. They're basically one step ahead of you as far as getting that fuel. So large industrial facilities, farms, larger farms that have diesel tanks, a lot of small farms don't have them. So if you don't have one and you need one, now is certainly a time to be looking at possibly getting one for your farm or your homestead if you have diesel equipment. You know, I know for us, we have our diesel tractor and our diesel truck, and it would be pretty difficult for us to operate our farm without that. Oops, sorry, getting a low battery warning. It would be pretty difficult for us to operate our farm without that. You know, we use the truck for everything from picking up hay and grains and hauling cattle and livestock. And the same thing holds true with our tractor. We use our tractor virtually every day, whether it's land clearing or bush hogging or just feeding the cows a round bale. You can't move those round bales. Those round bales are 1,000 pounds. You can't move them by hand. And you're kind of shit out of luck if you're trying to move that without with some decent capabilities. Now there's some options out there that you can deal with in the short term, but long term this is a bit of a problem. And so what this means is again, Saudi Arabia has basically said that they're not going to provide us anymore, right? So Biden went there begging, and or Jeff Borgen went there begging for oil, and they said, nope, sorry, we're good. You'll get your regular allotment. And so where this comes into play then too is we have no ability right now to restore our reserves because we're using more than we're producing. And so unless we start opening up pipelines and drilling, it's not going to get fixed here locally to us. Now, we can fix the issue. We can simply start providing the drilling leases and opening up more pipelines and allowing that stuff to be handled domestically and become energy independent again. So this can be fixed. Problem is, it won't be fixed overnight. It certainly takes some time to address these issues, because the moment they start drilling is not the moment you'll see an increase at or a decrease in the price of the pump. The moment they start drilling, their costs actually go up. So you may even see an increase in the price of the pump. But the fact of the matter is that when they start drilling, you've got time for that to get through the system and get back to you. So what do I actually think this is? Is this a nothing burger? No, absolutely not. This, I think, is very important. I think what we're likely to see is that if this does not get resolved in the next 50 days, which I don't see how it could, but if it doesn't get resolved within the next 50 days, what will end up happening is you'll start seeing increases on the pump prices again. It'll be right after the midterm elections, so they'll be able to blame it on the party that's controlling it at that point in time. So don't let that fool you. But what they'll do is they'll say, "See, I told you they couldn't fix this. Now gas prices are going up again." And the fact of the matter is, it's based on the last 2 years worth of policy. That's where the gas prices are coming from, and this is going to exacerbate those issues. We may see something along the lines of what we saw in the 1970s with waiting in line to actually get your vehicles pumped, and having limitations put on those. So it's something I want you to consider. Now, I want you to consider it too from a business aspect. Most businesses that run fleet vehicles, they fill up at the pumps as well. And if I've got to pay a guy to sit in line for an hour, that price ends up getting passed down to the consumer at some point in time. Now, it hurts me initially, but eventually it hurts the consumer, and it continues to add to, it's not really inflation, but it adds to the overall price increases on everything. And so it feels like inflation, even though it's truly not. Now, that's what we'll end up seeing. You'll see a lot of businesses struggling because a lot of small businesses like mine don't have fuel tanks for their fleet vehicles. Now, some do. Some have fuel tanks, and those ones will be able to weather the storm a little bit better. But unfortunately for our business, most of our guys work from home, and then they drive out to their job sites, and so they take a company vehicle home, which means that they fill it up, and then we reimburse them, or they put it on their company card, that's how a lot of businesses operate fleet vehicles, and that's where you're going to run into the problem. And again, it's just going to exacerbate the issue, because I'm going to have to raise my prices to cover the time I have to pay that guy to sit at the pump, and then now they're going to limit me on fuel too, because they're going to limit us to 10, 15 gallons, whatever. And a lot of our trucks have larger tanks because we do so much driving, and that will ultimately increase the problem. And you got to realize a lot of these companies that have fleet vehicles are driving things like trucks and vans, and not all of them are signed and have logos on the side. So even if there is a commercial area that you can go fill it from, you'll have to have a business account there in order to do that, and it's going to certainly create more headaches for the business owner. Again, everything that costs the business owner money up front is a hit on the business owner, but it eventually gets passed down to the consumer at a certain point in time. So it's something to consider, that everything will go up. Logistics, the price of shipping, all of that will increase. So it's just something I want you guys to really consider. You've got about 50 days left, if this doesn't get under control, like I said, I don't see how. If this doesn't get under control, you've got about 50 days left before we start seeing some pretty demanding fuel shortages. Now, one last thing on that is I want to tell you about is that we also have an increased demand. And normally in the summertime, you have an increased demand on fuel, and that's why fuel prices go up in the summertime to try to offset that. That's because people are traveling, and we haven't seen as much traveling since COVID hit. But right now, what you'll see is you're also going to see an increased use here as the winter takes storm, specifically up north, where fuel oil is a popular choice. As fuel oil becomes a more popular choice for people to heat their homes and actually survive the winter, that in itself increases the demand on it, because right now those people haven't had any need to fill it. But what ends up happening is they end up running it for November, December, January, and after January, their tanks maybe, you know, half or whatever, or quarter full or something along those lines, and then they top it off. And that's when you'll start seeing the plunge in this, where people start really feeling these numbers, when all of a sudden it costs you $1,000 to fill your tank. In the past, now you're at $2,500 to fill your tank, and oh, by the way, you have to wait 3 weeks to get in line to get your fuel, because we don't have any trucks that can bring it to you, or we simply just don't have the supply. So this is actually a scary issue. This is directly from the White House. This is from Epic Times. I'll post the article down below. You do have to have, I believe it's a free account to access the information, but I'll post a link down below. But anyways, guys, check it out. Tell me what you think. Leave some comments. Let me know what y'all are thinking on this. But I think that this is certainly telling us that we're headed towards a pretty drastic uphill battle on the fuel side of things, and it's not going to get fixed in one election. It has been taking us 2 years to screw this up. It's going to take us 2 years to get back out of it, type of thing. You know what I mean? So I really appreciate y'all watching. We'll catch y'all later.